Welcome to part 2 of the disappearance of Ryan Singleton. How far will you go to be famous? We're about to find out. Welcome to another episode of the True Crime Remixed, where I, Omega Keys, along with my girls, cover vengeance, scams, murder, and strange disappearances from the Black perspective. Part 2 of the disappearance of Ryan Singleton picks up right after Ryan visits his mother. She asks if he is going to leave her again. He said no, but she knows different. Make sure you are following us on IG, Facebook, and TikTok. Watch or listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon Podcasts, Audible, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, like, and leave us a comment or a review, depending on the platform. I was like, no, Mom, I would never do that to you. You think I would do that to you again? She's like, you already did it once. Like, I ain't stupid. Yeah. So she took him to the she said she took him to the train for him to take the train to go back to the airport. And she said she just looked at him walk away, and that was the last time she saw him. July 9th, 2013, the mom got a call from LA from her son asking for $100 that he had in his drawer to be sent to him. Like, all of a sudden, he's low on money. And this was only a few days later. She sent it Western Union, but then when she tried to call him back to give him the information for the Western Union, he never answered. The very next day, officers were at her house, and he was reported as an official missing person. She called Antonio and asked why he was there in LA, like what's going on, because he was supposed to be in Vegas. The team was all confused because everybody thought like Vegas is where he was supposed to be, but now he's off. This call was from LA. This is where things really get strange. A white guy named Thomas in LA is the person who took out the missing persons report less than 24 hours of Ryan missing. Supposedly, Ryan was on camera in some small Hoboken town, and he went into a store and bought something out the store and then walked off into the desert and just vanished. Police gave the mom the runaround, and later on we learned that he actually went to 2 gas stations and his card was declined for low funds. The mom then received a call from a different officer that they found Ryan's car parked by a power station. She was asked if he was suicidal, on drugs, or had mental problems.
That's terrible.
The police questioned why everyone was sending him money on a 3-way call. Kife said, well, Ryan was his husband and he was going to send him money, but that did not explain. It was a bunch of money going into Kife's account. He had money, but then it was a bunch of money. Like, he was calling like different people from the entourage asking for money, and everybody was sending him different money at different times. So it was just really strange. But the police didn't say why she was questioning him, just that he was questioning him. Yeah. The entourage reached out to Kife, but Kife didn't want to be bothered.
Strange. It is, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your husband. Why you don't want to be bothered?
Right. Like, what's going on, dude? What's going on? The police then started passing the case to different people and being rude to Iris. One even told her that Colin wasn't going to bring Ryan back. Right. Yeah, the area was racist and full of cults in that area. September 2013, after 74 agonizing days, Ryan Singleton's mummified and mutilated body turned up in the Mojave Desert. They said that they told the mother that the body was fully intact, but the organs were missing. How is that a fully intact body? Supposedly 2 joggers found the body.
In the desert?
Exactly.
Jogging in the desert.
Exactly. What? Yes.
I'm disgusted.
Yeah. The mom said that he had the most beautiful eyes and asked if his eyes were open or closed. When she got the call, she's asking these questions because she just want to know how her baby was found.
Right.
And they were like, ma'am, he didn't have eyes. His organs are missing. The cops and the FBI failed to provide answers about Ryan's fate to his devastated mother and friends. The Black entourage then started their own investigation. Robert Hunter did an autopsy report. The stomach, heart, kidneys, and eyes were missing, along with trauma to the head. The body was released to Kaif, even though they were separated. Kaif took photos and sent them to his mom. And of course, the entourage had the photos, and like they showed the actual photos. It was very, very disturbing of how he was found. They showed him in this documentary.
They did.
Yeah, they showed him. Yeah. After a few weeks, Kaif sent the remains to his mom to bury. Friends said Kaif didn't even cry or mourn at the funeral. Didn't help with any of the arrangements, and packed up and moved to Paris right after the funeral.
Are you freaking kidding me?
The team jumped into detective mode because there were just too many questions. Things came out about Kaif later that Ryan felt that he had to stay on drugs in order to be with Kaif.
Right. Yeah.
Kaif told him he could never return to his friends. Ryan offered drugs to one of their other mutual friends and said this is how he was able to even sleep with Kaif.
So I'm really not gay, but let me act gay.
Right. Because would I have to?
I mean, when you're dealing with the older man in this industry and stuff, that seems what it's leading to. Like, they basically got him on drugs to do what they want to do, I guess. That's all I can say.
So, sex trafficking almost?
Yeah.
Sex trafficking, that's kind of where I'm leaning on too, because it's kind of, but just like in a different sort of way.
Like in a contained.
Well, we've heard this story of contained.
Mm-hmm. A detective said Ryan ran out of gas and called Thomas to pick him up. This friend made it to Baker, but had to come from 6 hours away because he was in LA. When
the Thomas
person is a white guy. Yeah. He said that Ryan was not there. No one knew who Thomas was. They were all confused. Like, how is this Thomas dude even making a missing person? Right. Who is Thomas?
Right.
Yeah. He claims Ryan had a loving connection. He claimed Ryan drove to Vegas after to see some friends and that they spent all of his money. He's saying this is what Ryan told him on the phone. And that's why he was heading back to LA and he ran out of gas, and which is why he called Thomas. Now, one thing I'm going to say right here, that missing persons report came from LA. So Thomas supposedly drove all the way to Baker,
which is
Vegas. The Mojave Desert. It's not Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. Baker is, it's Baker, California.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in Vegas.
6 hours away.
He drove 6 hours supposedly to Baker. Ryan wasn't there, but then he drove another 6 hours back, and that's where he did this missing persons report.
That's good.
Exactly. Yes. Enter Javon, another model. Javon beat around the bush about, folks who Ryan hung out with. He really didn't want to talk about this too much. But then they finally got him to say, they were like, basically, you need to let us know what's happening because we're trying to figure out. And you're kind of impeding this investigation. So Javon finally gave him something. This then leads us to Anthony, which is another guy that Ryan was supposedly messing around with, and says Ryan approached him like a male escort. Said Ryan needed money for gas to drive to Vegas. And Anthony said basically anytime that they talked and met, Ryan was like, okay, they'll have sex or whatever, and then Ryan would be like, all right, I'm gonna need some money for something, whatever he would come up with at the time. So it was very gigolo-ish.
Speaking of crazy, we love true crime, and guess what? We are also filmmakers. Join us for the premiere of our crime thriller, Keeping Secrets, on January 28th. You can celebrate with us by watching along on Amazon or Tubi. Once again, this is our movie. It's about a cop who has to go undercover at a strip club in order to catch a serial killer. Sound familiar? Check us out on January 28th and go ahead and leave us a review. Once again, that's Keeping Secrets, and it's our film.
No one knows what happened in Vegas. Everyone says he needed to get there, but didn't know for what. Jump to 3 years later in this story, and they finally got the autopsy report. They ended up meeting with Bill Duke, the actor, who hooked them up with Bob Wingate, a private investigator. Without a doubt, Bob says this was murder. The autopsy report clearly said animal activity was secondary, meaning not the cause of the removal of organs. So why in the world would they say the body was fully intact when it was not? Bob said it was very odd that Thomas could even make the missing persons report less than 24 hours. He wasn't family, and that could only be done if something suspicious went on. Entourage drove to Baker to see for themselves. Baker, California is a little meth town. In 2010, the census listed one Black person lived there.
Wow.
Stopping for gas was at your own risk for Black people. And this was told from a white detective.
My goodness.
That's crazy.
Mhm. Ryan was Black and very tall. The people would remember him. They all did remember him, matter of fact. They say the person from the gas station found Ryan, not joggers, because who jogs in this isolated town in the desert? Like, if you see pictures of this town, there's nobody definitely going to be out there going for a jog. There's just no way. The crew found a swastika on a trash can close to where Ryan's body was found, from the route of the gas station to where Ryan was found.
What did the police do if the crew had to find this?
It don't sound like the police did nothing.
At this point, Bob thought Ryan was a mule. Someone probably drove from LA and dumped him in Baker. The friends think that maybe he was followed and targeted. They were getting more answers from Bob, but then Bob had a stroke. Now the documentary jumped to 2020. They have new investigators, Reggie Evans and Greg Kading, who is an ex-cop that also investigated Biggie Smalls. He made sure to let us know that he investigated Biggie Smalls in this documentary. Okay.
No, me.
We hear you.
Right. But they still ain't found Biggie's killer either.
So. Exactly. So, hey, we're still left with nothing. They found out from another friend of Ryan who he met up with after the day Ryan had his mom drop him off late at night, who also happened to get arrested in 2020 and was facing drug trafficking charges. Everyone found it strange that LaShawn knew Ryan was going to LA, and even stranger that he was now facing drug trafficking charges. And this was the person he met with just the day before leaving for LA. The new investigators found out that Thomas paid for Ryan's plane ticket to LA. The thing with Thomas sounded more than just friendship, but Ryan kept disappearing on him when he was there. Thomas said he asked about Kaif, and Ryan told him there's no way in hell he would deal with him. But the phone record showed that Ryan was actively still speaking to Kaif. It also showed that he had two phones.
Yes.
Yeah, he had two phones going on. So, because one of them was up on the plane with Kaif.
Right.
And so he was using another phone at this time to, do whatever he wanted to do, because Kaif actually found out about Thomas at one point. Yeah, it was a whole lot going on in this. The investigators also found it odd that a missing person report was filed in LA and not in Baker. Ryan was dropped off at a gas station by a police officer after running out of gas, but there were no names of the officers listed. Ryan claimed he was attacked by small desert animals when asked about his injuries, because they found them with scratches on him. At the gas station, he didn't have money, so his card is declined and he leaves. He leaves out of one gas station. The gas stations are actually across the street from each other. From the footage that the entourage got, they went in one gas station, didn't work, then he went across the street to the other one. Snopes contacted the police department, and they said that their officers would never have given Ryan a ride anywhere. Remember, the town listed one Black resident in 2010. So who were these so-called police? But there was video footage of the police actually dropping him off the car when it pulled up at the gas station. We did see on footage that there was a car.
Wow.
At this point, there were so many theories about what happened. Kaif didn't register the marriage certificate until 6 days after Ryan's death, but it was before the body was found because it took 74 days to find the body. But why is Keith registering this after he's dead? We know he's dead at this time. And 6 days later, he's registered the marriage certificate. So this means this is 6 days that he did not speak to Ryan. Yeah. Then he strangely opened up new businesses. So Kaif came into a lot of money after Ryan's death. Did Kaif kill him?
Oh, goodness.
Flashback to the 2012 Sacrifice cult fashion show of Kaif's, and then his body was found the exact same way. They literally describe what the fashion show was like, and it is exactly parallel to that. Y'all have to look that up on y'all, and I'm not going to go into detail about how that body looked.
Wow, but it mimicked the fashion.
Yes, it mimicked the fashion show of exactly how his body was found.
That's crazy.
Yep. Then there was a scorned lover, Thomas, and his making a missing report less than 24 hours later. His whole story just sounded flaky and crazy. Or was it something to do with LaShawn, the person that was locked, facing charges for drug trafficking? Now this brings us to the last episode. This episode was not told through the eyes of Entourage, but the private investigators.
So it's giving me, Kai found out about Thomas. He pissed off and some stuff went on. But I'm going to go ahead and let you finish this story.
You think that? You think that?
That was my first thought. But now I got to wait to see what happened.
My heart is racing.
Now this brings us to the last episode. This episode, like I said, it was not told from the Entourage, but then private investigators themselves. For some reason, they now had cameras following them around without the friends. For this documentary that was supposed to be put on by the friends. Back in Baker, one of the private investigators, the black partner, was like, this is one place as a black man that he did not want to be. He felt something could happen to him while there. And this was a big heavy set dude, big guy that was saying this. And he's a PI. He's used to rolling up on people. So the actual witness who found the body was willing to speak on camera and said he didn't understand how Ryan ended up there. I'm not sure why the news said it was joggers, the witness said. And he took them to the actual location where the body was found. They said it was 2 joggers. There was only one person that found them. And that one person who found them also worked at the convenience store, the gas station.
Right.
Yeah. He said it was no way Ryan was there for 74 days because vultures would have tore him up. And they would have seen the few citizens in Baker would have seen the vultures hovering over, because when they see vultures, they know something's out there and they always go look.
Plus, you would think in 74 days, the elements would have affected or, the body. Right.
Well, the body definitely looked like it had been somewhere for 74 days. It was definitely looking like a mummy. But that heat from the desert, they said that just walking around, it was well over 100 degrees in the shade. So you get to that desert, it's 120 plus. So yeah. Now we dive into the route Ryan took, and it was weird. I mean, he was all over the place. He did a loop and has phone calls lying to his mom about where he was, lying to Kaif, lying to Thomas, lying to everybody. Investigators traced the trip. It was a lot of unexplained and missing time. Like he would go somewhere, meet a stop point, because they were checking it. They know where he went because he was stopping at gas stations. So they were able to tell where he swiped his card at. And in some places he would stop, be there it would be 4 hours. And then he would drive somewhere else and they would see him clock in. But they know how long it takes to get from point A to point B. But then there's now 4 hours of missing time. They don't know what he was doing. And there was a lot of backtracking. He went from New Mexico, then back to Arizona, then up to Nevada, then back to Arizona, and then finally back to Baker, California, where he was calling and saying he was on his way back to LA. Not one time did he stop in Las Vegas.
Kai's statement to the police is that Thomas reported Ryan missing way too soon and called him obsessed with Ryan. The investigators finally got a statement from the CHP officer who supposedly dropped Ryan off. He said Ryan was scratched up, didn't bother to question him further. However, the officer did say that Ryan was acting strange. Supposedly, video captured him on camera, but they claimed the system crashed after. But I think it was just one of the stores, because I think the other store did have video footage of them because it was 2 gas stations. So there was no video from one of them. And the banks declined to charge on his card, which is strange because Ryan started this trip with $2,000 on his card. And LaShawn kept saying in his interview that the night before, Ryan had a lot of money on him, like in cash. So he had $2,000 on the bank, but he also had a lot of cash on him. But the day he came up missing, it was declined for a drink at the gas station. And mind you, when they found the car, they didn't say this, but one thing from the footage that they showed, it was money, and it was just like some $1 bills up in there. But if you're supposedly walking to a gas station or somewhere for money, and you know your car don't have money, why didn't you take that money?
Right.
Because that was definitely enough to get a drink that he was supposedly in these stores trying to get.
Right.
And in the interview continuing with LaShawn, he said Ryan was there definitely for drugs and prostitution. He said they both were prostitutes. This broke my soul. LaShawn knew the route well, and it was a hookup route that they took. Like they were literally following an app to go hook up with people.
Speaking of folks doing too much, have you watched Faded Reunion yet? Then what are you waiting for? It's the perfect blend of drama and comedy and a great way to reset from all of this true crime. So, what's it about? I'm so glad you asked. Mandy is desperate to impress at her 10-year reunion and will do whatever it takes, but so is her rival Jessica. So Mandy brings along the handsome Dr. Dante Perez as her wingman, and that's when things get crazy. And guess what? It's written and directed by yours truly. Check it out now. You can watch it on Tubi or YouTube, and the best part is free. So what are you waiting for? Go watch it now.
LaShawn said that the world is very risky, and you could definitely end up missing by doing this. Experts said it wasn't uncommon for a model turned stripper to end up there, basically end up dead. That's what they were talking about. The strip club is also where he met Kaif, Thomas, and Anthony. Ryan had an ongoing affair with Thomas behind Kaif's back. LaShawn confessed that they did meth together frequently. Mind you, his mom, she asked about the drugs, but the reason she asked about the drugs is because his father used to be on drugs. Okay. So that's why she asked about it, but she never seen him, and she didn't think that he had done them. None of the entourage had ever seen him do drugs either.
He said.
Yeah.
That's how he was able to do the stuff he was doing.
Yeah, right. But he told the friends, yeah. Then the investigator pieced together the story and the reason for this 1,700-mile trip. He was using the app to have sex with these different men. The app dictated where he drove to. He get a ping, he's going to go meet these high-end men to sleep with. And the investigators reached out to Kaif, and he sent a message to the investigators implicating the entourage as all being escorts and saying that Antonia was in love with Ryan as well.
He didn't want to be behind that.
Yeah, and he was just making up. Right. At this point, he was just making up stuff. So Antonio stopped wanting to be on camera. Like at this point, when they first started mentioning that he might be a prostitute, Antonio left the room. And then this is when they decided, okay, we're just going to talk to the mom. And they were kind of happy that he left the room because they felt like Antonio was influencing the mom's thing, but Antonio just was really taking hard. But I thought it was strange that he no longer wanted to be on camera since he was a film producer and was all about filming a movie and things like that. So that was kind of strange to me. But later on a hidden recording, Antonio was shocked about the prostitution and the drug abuse. The investigators say Ryan was dehydrated after leaving both gas stations and passed out in the desert. This still don't explain the missing organs and how the body wasn't found sooner or
sooner if it wasn't dumped, because the few people who lived out there would have seen the buzzards.
For sure.
It also doesn't make sense that he would have walked to the desert. Like, you're going to get off the road and now you're going to go to the desert instead of trying to get some help elsewhere. You could have knocked on the door and asked somebody for some water or something, but it was kind of weird. Antonio ended up recording himself after the fact, and he was just hurt, you know, the entourage recording, not dealing with, you know, I found Biggie Smalls killer, P.I. He was just hurt to digest this part of Ryan's life. He was confused and said he never saw Ryan do drugs and believes Ryan was murdered. You know, I also believe, because the autopsy report said that the organ, you know, them organs missing basically were strange, and being out in the desert was secondary. Right. So I believe the autopsy report. And this is where the story ended for Ryan Singleton. And this documentary called Dying to Be Famous.
Wow.
So it is so many unresolved questions. It messed me up. My thoughts on this, watching Ryan in his own words was very tough, because they were just putting him in at these moments. And he said one time on it, he was like, you know, I don't know what I want to do. I just know I don't want to die for it. Then there was another video that Ryan did before he even took the trip. He was in the car and he was showing the road, and he was just like, basically, God help me for what I'm about to do. Give me, you know, like, it was a lot of foreshadowing, and it was like crazy. The way they were overlaying his words during the investigation was crazy. And I didn't expect Ryan to turn out to be a prostitute and on meth.
Not at all.
Yeah. Like I said, I do believe he was murdered from the coroner's report. Organs just don't end up missing from the way that they did. Even if the buzzards would have went and pecked away, they're not the way all of those organs were missing. It's just not going to be like that. And that area was known from dumping bodies. Like they said, it was hundreds of bodies found around that, you know, they find bodies all the time from people dumping them. The neighbors were like, yeah, we see lights all the time just rolling out there, dump a body and peel out. Like, it's not uncommon. But this day, they didn't say they seen a body during this time, so they don't know when that one got dumped. Yeah.
That sounds crazy.
It's crazy as hell. And I just don't believe he decided to walk up the road and into the desert.
No, he didn't.
He didn't.
And somewhere between Kai Thomas,
LaShawn,
somewhere someone found out about what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you got probably multiple people into this. You probably didn't. One of them probably killed this man.
Right.
Dumped the body, and somebody did come and get those organs.
You know, I'm gonna put my hand up and I'm leaning more towards Kaif, because that whole sacrificial thing that he did, and then him getting the marriage certificate certified 6 days after he was dead.
Yeah, that's suspect for real.
That's crazy. And all of a sudden this is like when he really blew up, his businesses blew up after that, because he immediately got money. So that sounds like somebody sold some organs.
Yeah, that's really sad. It's a tragic story.
That's very tragic.
It is
tragic.
I wish we had more information for exactly what happened.
And this is just a message to parents.
There you go.
It would be hard for me to not speak to my child in a year, first of all. To me, that's already a sign of something isn't right.
Cindy don't call me back. Cindy don't call me back in 20. You know what I mean? I'm trying to find.
Yeah, so we have to step up as parents to dig deeper, because we know young kids can get lost. And I think starting at an early age, these teenagers or whatever, they're experimenting. They're trying to figure out who they are, what they want in life, and then you add in money. And I just remember a few years ago, I was having a conversation with an older man, and he was just speaking of just at women at 21 years old, like, you're an adult then.
No.
But if you're 40 and 50 years old and you're dating someone 21, you can manipulate them using money And we had this big debate about that. And I told him, as a parent, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's gonna cause problems down the line, and you're not mature enough to make sound decisions on everything, although you're considered an adult.
Right. That's like, I still, with, Bird is 23, and I still like, no, that's not. I'm still checking him on certain stuff because I get worried, nervous. Like, you're not worldly, you don't know a lot of the dangers. But I mean, it's crazy. It's like, this is a caution, definitely a cautionary tale. It's like so sad and scary. And I believe, LaShawn, I don't think LaShawn was in on a murder. I think he just knew, like, he's in that life, so he knows that stuff. And I think, when they were actually talking to him, LaShawn looked hurt. Like, LaShawn was so hurt.
Right.
By it, because I think he feels guilty for being the person he was doing drugs with and prostituting with and things like that.
Right.
He just happened not to be there that time because he said he had did that route before. Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah, so we just have to do better, and understand, young people, when that carrot is dangling in your face,
right,
it is not always there for you to eat it.
Oh, it's so lame.
Right,
it definitely
right,
ain't. Don't
right,
eat the carrot.
Right. And the other thing that strikes me, going back to this idea of him not speaking with his mom, is that, like, as a parent, we all know that our kids have these desires and dreams and want to do big things, but, like, continue to create the space for conversation so that, our voice can still be heard. I feel like, had his mom's voice been able to be heard, maybe, but he was isolating himself, probably manipulated and being kept away from.
Yeah, well, when you're on drugs and stuff like that, you do hide from your parents. You do things like that. You hide from people that you would normally be around. You don't want them to see that side of you. So, that's the end of the episode. Before we go, make sure you follow us on IG at the True Crime Remix, Facebook at True Crime Remix Podcast, on TikTok at True Crime Remix, and on Twitter at the True Crime Remix. Watch or listen to us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Podcast, Audible, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, like, and leave us comments, or drop a review depending on the platform. And guess what? I'm gonna say this: depending on when you're watching this, make sure you watch Keeping Secrets. That's our movie. Yes, of course it is a crime thriller drama, because hey, we like crime. Yeah. This has been another episode of the True Crime Remix. I'm your host, Omega Keys, along with Kathy Taylor and Kimberly Edward. Until next time, peace, love, soul, and hair grease.